everyone. Tonight is May 21st, 2025, and we are convening the Planning Commission public hearing. I am Tamara Blake Wallace, the Planning Commission Administrator. This meeting will be conducted as a hybrid meeting, allowing for both virtual and in-person participation. Tonight, we have 3 public hearings scheduled. All hearings are duly advertised, and the certificate of publication is part of the record for each hearing. Citizens are invited to provide comments on all or any or all of the hearings after each presentation has concluded. Each of the 3 hearings will have a separate comment period following the brief presentation. Anyone here in person must sign in on the sign-in sheet in order to speak on the table as you enter through the main door. At this time, I will turn the meeting over to Commissioner Toohey to call the meeting to order.
Good evening. My name is John Toohey. I'm the Planning Commission Chair. This is the public hearing of the Planning Commission for Wednesday, May 21st, 2025. David Berry. Present. Wilson Freeland.
Here.
Christopher Gadway.
Here.
Greg Kernan.
Here.
James McQueen.
Here.
And Dale Weems.
Here.
We have a quorum. We are called to order. If everyone would please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, we will have presentation by staff. First on the agenda tonight, item 3A, the Howling Point Park Master Plan Update.
Good evening, Commissioners.
Good evening.
I'm Stephanie Sperling. I'm the Park Planner with Parks and Recreation. Would you like me to read the memo?
Good
Gentlemen.
evening, Amanda Stowagon, Park and Safety Division Chief.
Good evening.
Good evening. Gentlemen, anybody have a feeling about the memo?
Go ahead and read it. Go ahead, please.
Please.
Sure,
Thank you, ma'am.
of course. Background. The Halloween Point Park, located at 4755 Halloween Point Road, Prince Frederick, Maryland, is an 81-acre park in Calvert County featuring athletic fields, walking paths, a playground, a basketball court, tennis courts, and pickleball courts. There is also a pavilion available for rental by the community. The most recent master plan was developed in 1998, and an update is needed to guide park improvements and growth over the next 15 to 20 years. Discussion. In the fall of 2023, the Department of Parks and Recreation began the process of updating the HPP master plan. They solicited feedback and worked with Murphy and Dittenhaffer architects to complete a draft plan in September of 2024. Desired improvements included constructing well-lit paved walking paths and natural surface trails, converting several multi-use athletic fields to synthetic turf, upgrading the baseball softball fields, improving signage, and constructing a new in-ground skate park, among others. Work sessions were held at the October 16, 2024 Planning Commission regular meeting and at the October 22, 2024 Board of County Commissioners regular meeting. The draft plan was found to be consistent with the Calvert County Comprehensive Plan, and there were no BOCC or public comments. On February 27, 2025, upon review, the Planning Commission directed staff to send the draft plan to agencies for review, schedule a public hearing for today, May 21st, 2025, and notify the agencies and adjoining jurisdictions at least 60 days in advance of the public hearing. So, on March 7th, 2025, the plan was sent to 13 adjoining jurisdictions and 18 Calvert County government staff members who serve as department heads and or act as staff for volunteer boards and commissions. Comments were received from 4 external agencies, 2 Calvert County commissions, and 1 community member. And I should add that additional emails were received from community members, and I submitted those earlier. Fiscal impact. Funds to update the HPP master plan were previously procured, and cost estimates for all proposed upgrades and additions are provided in the document. Conclusion recommendation, staff recommends the Planning Commission hold the public hearing, close the record, and take appropriate action. So, I'll start the presentation now. Okay, so this first slide just shows the project location of Halloween Point Park. It's located in the center of the county, sort of on Halloween Point Road, close to where the Benedict Bridge passes over into Charles County. The existing amenities in the park include multi-use fields, a playground, pickleball courts, tennis courts, basketball courts. We have softball, baseball fields. We have a pavilion for rental, as I said in the memo. There's a restroom building and a maintenance building. And I should point out on this slide that even though Parks and Recreation has developed a portion of the property to the west, we lease that property, we do not own that property, and so it was not considered part of this master plan process. So, as I said in the memo, we contracted Murphy and Dittenhofer in 2023 and solicited input from residents via a survey. We got over 2,000 responses, and based on that, we completed the draft plan by September of 2024. And just in summary, the proposed improvements in the draft plan included updating some of the multi-use fields and one of the baseball softball outfields to synthetic turf. One thing that people really wanted was paved walking paths and natural surface walking paths, so we included that in the plan. In addition, just upgrades to the baseball, softball fields, additional pavilion, additional playground, and an in-ground skate park. There's been a lot of interest in the county for additional skate parks. So, as I said, we came here to the Planning Commission and to the BOCC in October 2024. We had no public comments. In February, the Planning Commission directed us to send the draft plan to agencies, and which we did. Gave them 60 days notice. We sent the plan to 13 outside agencies, 18 internal staff members, and we received comments back from 4 external agencies, the Maryland Historical Trust, the Maryland Department of Environment, the Maryland Department of Natural Resources, and the Maryland Department of Planning, and 2 internal commissions, the Historic District Commission and the Environmental Commission. And I say 1 community member here, but as I said, we received additional comments after the end of the 60-day period. And this table just shows you, again, just sort of reiterates what I said in the last slide. It was the Maryland Department of Planning clearinghouse, so they send comments from all of the state agencies that are interested in commenting, and then the environmental planner and the historic preservation planner. So I've just summarized what they all said, and these comments have been submitted for the record if you'd like to read them or have any questions. But the DNR, the Department of Natural Resources, they were very positive about the plan. They say basically, that this provides great recreational opportunities. We were thoughtful in the plan, and it's in compliance with their goals. The Maryland Department of Planning suggested the need to improve bicycle and pedestrian access into the park, and including safe access at the entrance and from the surrounding communities on the west side of the park. The Department of the Environment, their comments were sort of boilerplated, but they have several, so I've tried to summarize them briefly here. They basically talk about soil contamination, lighting. They go on to talk about the need for electric vehicle charging stations, consider petroleum storage tanks, and solid waste removal during construction. In addition to that, they also say that if there's any brown fields that we need to consider that. There are not on Halloween Point Park. The Calvert County Environmental Commission, they focused on lighting, to consider that whenever we're putting in new lighting, that the lights should go down to be more pinpointed, so that the park's more dark sky friendly, which we do as we update the lights in the park. And the light should be placed on a timer and not run all night long, and we do that as well currently. Now, the MHT and the Historic District Commission had interesting comments that it was sort of an oversight of ours in the master plan. The MHT was concerned about they talk about 3 barns on the property which aren't described in the master plan. There are currently only 2. One was demolished right before the pandemic, maybe 2019, 2018, around then. One of the barns near the playground is built in the mid-19th century, 1850 to 1870. And they state that given that the tobacco barns are a vanishing cultural resource, that they recommend that we incorporate descriptions of them and treatment plans. And the Historic District Commission here in Calvert County sort of echoed that. They were concerned with the tobacco barns and the lack of mention of them in the master plan. They also looked at the historic aerials that are available and noticed that in 1938 and 1957 there are some buildings that were visible, that we should mention that as an archaeological potential. And in addition to that, that there's a promontory, a hill, sort of at the back of the park, that's where the walking trail is going to go, and that could also have archaeological potential on it. Just to summarize for you, the 2 historic barns that they're talking about that still exist on the park they bookend the playground. This picture was taken before the pickleball courts went in, which would be sort of between me taking the picture and the barns. But these give you a sense of where they are. And here are some historic pictures of them. The barn on the left is the older one from the mid-19th century, and the one on the right is probably from the mid-20th century. And this map just shows you where they're located on the park. It's sort of tough to see, but there's an aerial photograph on the left that's from 1938, and the one on the right is from 1957. The yellow square shows you where the barn that no longer exists was, like I said, it was demolished before the pandemic. The existing barns are circled in red. The structures that they talked about are circled in blue, and that's sort of underneath where our maintenance shop is currently, so that's been pretty well blitzed. But the promontory is circled in green, and that's where the walking trails are proposed. That's the last slide I have, but we do intend to update the master plan to include all of these comments.
So you will be including the barns and the archaeological finds in the master plan?
Yes, it will be amended, yes.
On page 18 with the historic barns, mid-19th century, possibly NRHP eligible, what is that?
National Register of Historic Places.
Is there a plan in place for that to be applied for, or how does that work?
So there isn't a plan in place. There was a study that was recently done of barns in southern Maryland, and they mentioned that barn specifically and said that it could be eligible. What the Maryland Historical Trust is really concerned about is just that we sort of mention a treatment plan that, I suppose that they probably could be added to, and I will defer to my planning colleagues here. It could potentially be added to the Planning Commission's historic district, commission list. But it seems kind of unlikely because barns are infrequently added. It's typically archaeological sites or historic houses. My thought for this, frankly, is to put up signage and just sort of like talk about the cultural significance of that for park patrons.
What kind of obligation, without that consideration, what kind of obligation would it be to maintain that structure?
Or to protect it?
My point.
Yeah, obligation? I'm not entirely certain what the obligation is. I don't think that because it's not listed as not a historic district, we don't have necessarily an obligation, but I know that the Historic District Commission and the Maryland Historical Trust would frown on it if it were demolished.
Well, I see we already have one structure there demolished.
That was more recent.
Right.
That was from the 20th century.
So
actually.
you're aware that the structure that was demolished was not on the county property?
Yes, that's right, it was, you're correct, it was on the Hall property.
And then the older of the two barns that are on the county property, there has been a grant in the past, as I recall, that paid to put in a display with some signage and some history of that structure. Is that still in place?
It is no longer in place, although I did find it. I did go into one of the barns with the Calvert County Historic Preservation Planner recently, just sort of poke around after we got the comments back. And we did find part of it, but that display is sort of in sorry shape, so it needs to be updated.
So, I mean, that has been there 25 years or more, that display.
Okay.
And as I recall, it's the barn itself that has the history. The shed that faces north is newer than the barn itself.
Yes, that's right. It does look like it's been added on to.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's not, and yes, it's different than the original footprint was. In addition to that, I should mention that I passed out additional comments from the community. One community member he wanted some clarification on the food truck hookups. If they have electricity offered. I think it does say that in the plan, but if it doesn't, I'll make sure to add it. The other comments, interestingly, many of them were about synthetic turf and their sort of opposition to synthetic turf. Which, as I responded to these folks, I told them all that nothing is set in stone, and whenever it does come time to make these decisions about synthetic turf, that we will take into consideration, environmental needs, safety needs, cost, long-term maintenance. It will be a conversation. That, of course, nothing in the master plan, these are all just suggestions, nothing in this master plan is absolutely set in stone.
So how many fields at Howling Point Park currently now are sprigged with Bermuda?
Currently at the park, we have the 2 football fields in the back, and then we have fields 6, 7, and 8, which is one large rectangular field that we break into 3 separate fields. So technically you could say we had 5.
So are you looking to replace the Bermuda with synthetic now?
It would be the easiest way to do it, yes. The easiest way would be to do a replacement. So the way that it's proposed on the master plan is you would take one of the existing Bermudas and replace it with synthetic.
So as I recall, the county invested a considerable sum of money to switch from the fescue to Bermuda. Are we going to just abandon that approach now? I mean, there were irrigation wells installed to support the Bermuda.
Well, the majority of the rectangular fields, which are soccer fields and football fields, are the Bermuda. The majority of your baseball fields, we do have some baseball fields that are Bermuda, but the majority of the baseball fields are the fescue. They're the ones that didn't get transitioned into Bermuda, with the exception of like Ward Park. So when we built Ward, all of Ward is Bermuda, but Hallowing it is not.
So number 3 field at Howling Point Park was a multi-purpose. Will that continue to be multi-purpose? It doesn't look like it on the presentation.
You mean the one that's highlighted?
Number 3 field, the one that was.
Yeah,
the
it was just
the only
highlighted.
baseball field.
Yeah, so that's the 90-foot field, so it's the one that has the mound on it. So that one is not the one that you see there, it's number 2. So that, I'm not sure, that's the one that's highlighted. You said number 3?
It's field 3. It was originally field 3.
Yeah, okay. So the one with the 90-foot diamond?
Yes.
Yes. So we were just proposing that it could be one that could be transitioned into a synthetic field.
So are you currently still playing football on that field
Yes.
as well?
Yes,
So that would continue?
it could, yes.
Okay.
Yep, yeah, it could. It just can't be used for anything other than baseball in the infield because it has the mound versus our other fields where you can adjust the pitching plate to accommodate, if you were doing a 10U baseball, or you could play softball on it or adult softball, but when you have a pitching mound, it's specific to baseball. But we still, the outfield is still large enough to accommodate football.
When the time comes to have that discussion about the Bermuda versus artificial, I personally would absolutely support Bermuda. There's a lot of arguments out there against artificial. Safety, kids' ankles and knees need to be taken care of. Artificial has been proven to cause problems with ligaments and tendons and joints.
It's the playability, though. So, when we did the survey with 2,000 responses, you had 1,000 people that want synthetic.
Yeah.
So that's the tough part.
Sure.
It's the cancellations on the natural turf that you have versus the synthetic that you can play on all winter.
Sure.
You don't cancel as much, and you're right. It definitely is a back and forth between people. In a perfect world, you'd practice on synthetic and you'd play on a natural surface on a Bermuda, and I think that's what a lot of colleges and high schools and things do, because the synthetic can take play after play after play. You can run practice after practice. What happens to us on the Bermuda is, game after game, by the
Wear
time
it
we
out.
get to the
Yeah.
fall,
Wear it
we
out.
get bare spots, and that becomes unsafe as well. Now you have kids rolling their ankles because, right in front of the goal mouth, it's a dirt hole. So, there's pros and cons to both, and
Right.
it would definitely be a conversation, but we have as many people in support of it
Right.
as we do not.
It's a
It's
it's a
a
win-win or
tough,
lose-lose,
yes,
depending on which way
yeah,
you look at it, but,
yeah,
summer temperatures, 50 degrees higher on the field than on the side,
Oh, yeah.
there are a lot of cons to it also, so
Yeah.
please explore those,
sure, absolutely.
Yeah, I'll be very interested to see how this debate plays out.
Yeah.
I found one of the public comments very well researched, talking about some of the data on injuries and
Sure.
environmental impact, and I was really impressed by that. I have a question about planning commission authorities. Does the issue about whether to go synthetic versus turf, does that fall under planning commission purview?
I think so. No.
You're asking,
Yeah,
Yes,
I
thank
think that's probably the question.
so what happens at this point is you absolutely have to find either consistent or inconsistent
With comprehensive
with the
plan.
comprehensive
or-
plan. That's the first
Okay,
step.
Yeah,
The second step, you could make a recommendation, but you can also make a recommendation conditioned on, and then you
Right.
could say X, Y, Z.
yeah,
Now, the third option, which is to basically, and the vernacular is to table, but it's not really a tabling, it's a postponement, where you would direct staff to bring forth another proposal, and then you could vote on that later.
right.
So that's kind of the fifth option, if you will. But generally, the method that's most done, and probably the most elegant, I guess, would be to make the consistency finding and then either recommend adoption, deny recommending an adoption.
Yeah.
And then if you wanted to make, say, for instance, the historical, well, I condition that on the historical questions being addressed, et cetera.
Sure, yeah. Yeah. Personally, I haven't looked really hard at the comprehensive plan in this regard. I'm not sure there's anything that is in the comprehensive plan that dictates one or the other or leans that way. So, at least for me, I'm tempted to just let the experts on both sides have the discussion and then play it out and may the best argument win.
Yeah, and we do. I mean, we rely on other counties within the state. We are one of the only counties in the state that doesn't offer synthetic turf. So, if you go to any neighboring county, they do have synthetic turf fields, whether they're at high schools. The only places that have it here in the county are private. Calverton has one and some other locations, but we don't have them in the public parks. So it is tough. Because a lot of your travel organizations and things, they travel outside of the county and go other places to get those fields, because you can play on them on a night like tonight where we have every field in the county closed. It just rained all day today, so there's nothing we could do. There's no amount of there's not enough turf we can put on an infield of a baseball field today to make it playable, you know, for it to be safe for kids to get out. And even our fields in the northern end of the county, you know, with Ward Park that was new, we've put in the Dura Edge infield mix, which is a high quality infield mix. It's usually dry within 6 hours after a rain event, but still with a day like today where you've just got the continual rain, there's just not anything you can do.
Sure.
But on synthetic, you can play. And, you know, synthetic has evolved, and there are a lot of different ways that more organic products that you can use for infill versus using the rubber. You know, there's a lot of things I know that the state is looking at as far as being stewards of it and making sure that you dispose of it properly. And so they're really looking at, you know, those sorts of things that's probably evolved over time since there's more and more synthetic, and looking at the life cycle of it. Maintenance of it is much cheaper than maintenance of Bermuda, just simply because you don't have that cost of sprigging and fertilizing and, you know, putting your pre-emergence down every year and top dressing sand and all the things that you do with maintenance. And you have to close Bermudas for 6 to 8 weeks every year, you know, to keep them nice and playable, so.
In reference to the ingress egress on 231, the direct ingress egress, that on one hand has gotten better, on the other hand it's gotten worse.
Yeah,
So the way, and I know you guys don't have 100% control on it, it's a state issue, you have to have state approval. One of the concepts that was floated about 4 years ago was to have ingress only at that location if you were eastbound only. There was not supposed to be an egress. They made it to where it's supposedly egressed west only, but I drive 231 3 or 4 or 5 times a day,
and watch everybody make a left.
and
Yeah.
invariably at least 15 times a week, I see somebody turning left into the park, or I see somebody coming out of the park and turning left onto 231. So if you guys can also, in this project, communicate with state that while we appreciate the fix, it seems that it was a partial fix.
I don't want to overspeak, and I know that our director, Bob, is here, and he may want to speak to it as well. There are a lot of conversations being had right now about this intersection.
Good evening, Commissioners. Bob Brandon, Director of Parks and Recreation. This issue is prominent to us as well, and we're going to address it outside of this that you're being presented tonight. We have a meeting next week to discuss this, and we have approached State Highway for a couple of options, temporary or smaller bollards, Triton barriers, things of that nature. They've recommended signage. We know it's not only a problem leaving the park, but also coming west to east, they're turning left in.
Right.
So we have several things on the table to discuss next week. We're looking for a much more expedited answer to control that because we do recognize it's a dangerous situation.
We greatly appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
We have enough accidents there. We don't need to promote more areas for it.
Understood. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Well, and our
Thank you,
plan
sir.
is also just to improve signage. I mean, that's one thing that we can control, is to, once people get into the park, to help them navigate their way to Skipjack and to safely exit.
And for folks coming from Charles County into Calvert, you know, we don't have any signage there, like Stephanie spoke to, that tells you to turn at Skipjack to go into the back entrance of the park. You know, you have so many people that frequent the park so often and they know where to go, but if you're a first time person to Halloween and you don't know, you get to the park and then you can't make a left. So, you know, we do speak, like Stephanie said, a lot to wayfinding signage in the master plan and how we need to expand upon that, inside the park, outside the park. So for folks, it hopefully will help and just make the traffic flow easier for people.
I just want to reiterate that I'm really in support of getting that barn registered in order protected or some type of protection for it.
Okay.
Thank you.
We do the maintenance on it now. If there's any issues, like we had a section of the roof panel come off, it's the park staff that that gets up there and works on it, but,
Then I get it, but you and I aren't gonna be here in 20 years.
yep, yeah, agreed.
Gentlemen, any other questions?
Good presentation, thank you.
Yeah, excellent presentation. We
Excellent.
appreciate it.
Thanks. We're all done? Everyone? Yes.
They need to vote.
Oh, sorry.
Yes, you may want to stay because if there's a discussion in between, after the second.
Oh,
you may
but
wanna-
for right now,
Right
you're,
now.
For right now, just.
we can leave the table, stay here.
Wait till after the vote on the motion, please. Thank you.
We have public comment?
Yeah, public comment first. Don't move.
Public,
Do we have public comment tomorrow?
yes, public comment.
Is there anyone that has
Has any public comment at this time? Do we have anybody to sign up to speak? Okay,
That's it.
it's ready for action.
In that case, would anybody care to make a motion?
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
Yes, sir?
I move that we close the record, find Howling Point Park Master Plan update is consistent with the Calvert County Comprehensive Plan and recommend adoption by the Board of Calvert County Commissioners.
Thank you, Commissioner, and we have a second also. That was Commissioner Gadway. All those in favor? Aye. Are there any opposed? Thank you so much, gentlemen. Ladies, thank you so much. We appreciate all your help tonight.
Thank you.
That brings us to item 3B, text amendment case 2501, amendments to the Calvert County Water and Sewage Comprehensive Plan related to the county-owned facilities.
All right. Evening, I'm James Rivera, the Deputy Director for Public Works. So, would you like me to read the memo?
Yes,
Could you read
please.
it for the record? Yeah.
All right, so background, the Department of Public Works Water and Sewers staff is proposing a text amendment to the Water and Sewers Comprehensive Plan to require all county-owned facilities located within 300 feet of a public water or sewer line to connect to the system. This proposed text amendment would ensure that county-owned facilities utilize existing infrastructure to promote efficiency, environmental sustainability, and cost-effective service delivery. Discussion. Currently, the category determines the only requirement for county-owned facilities to connect to public water and sewer systems when lines are available nearby. This can result in inefficient resource utilization, continued reliance on well and septic systems, excuse me, and potential environmental concerns. By mandating connection to available public water and sewer services within 300 feet, the county can improve public health and environmental protection by reducing reliance on septic systems and private wells, enhance the efficiency and effectiveness of public water and sewer infrastructure, and ensure compliance with long-term county planning goals for sustainable development. This proposed amendment aligns with best practices for municipal utility management and supports the county's broader objectives for responsible growth and infrastructure use. Then, in conclusion, the Department of Public Works, Water and Sewers requests that the Planning Commission consider the following options. Find the proposed text amendment is consistent with the Calvert County Comprehensive Plan and recommend adoption by the Board of County Commissioners. Find the proposed text amendment is consistent with Calvert County Comprehensive Plan and recommend the adoption by the Board of County Commissioners with conditions. Find the proposed text amendment is not consistent with the Calvert County Comprehensive Plan. Find the proposed text amendment is consistent with Calvert County Comprehensive Plan, but recommend that the Board of County Commissioners deny the proposed text amendment.
Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Mr. Ritter, how
Yes,
many
sir.
buildings would this currently affect?
None.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
so if the county were to purchase a property in the future, since it doesn't affect any now, if the county were to purchase a property with taxpayer dollars that hypothetically had a brand new well on the property and a brand new septic that was installed by the seller at an extremely high cost, both those brand new features would have to be negated immediately and just abandoned in order to tie in.
The intent is to allow that the connection could be made. So if there were an issue with those systems, we could then look at that time and evaluate. They would be able to connect without changes to the maps.
But if the systems were fully functional, this would require you to abandon the fully functional systems and tie in.
Correct, if it's within 300 feet. And given the category, so that systems for that well and septic to go in, they would have to be within a category that would allow connections up to a water or sewer category 3, which would then require connection within a year through the existing category if
Okay.
service becomes available.
Is there any knowledge that you have of any properties that would become affected by this?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Okay, thank you.
Gentlemen, any other questions?
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
James, the last time you were here with us, we asked that irrigation systems be exempted
Yes, sir.
from this amendment. How is that addressed in the amendment?
Not currently, I wasn't sure if we should add that then or after we come back to you.
So we were just talking about Howling Point Master Plan.
Correct.
I believe that we have county water and sewer running past that facility currently, is that right?
There's a sewer line that passes that on the opposite side of 231.
And is there not water on the western side?
There is water to the bathhouse coming from the industrial park.
So would this facility under this amendment be required to tie the rest of the facility in?
I wouldn't look to abandon the irrigation well because that would be a poor use of drinking water from the water system.
I believe that the irrigation wells are listed as non-potable, is that correct?
They would have an exemption from MDE for irrigation purposes.
But, I don't know that Parks and Recreation wants to pay to irrigate fields.
Agreed?
So that was the reason that we asked that the irrigation systems be exempted from the amendment.
Yes, sir.
So is that possible? Is that gonna be done?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
The buildings and whatnot at Halloween Point, are you saying those are currently on public water, or are they on irrigation water, or are they on sewer, or what are those buildings?
One of the bathrooms, the Parks and Recs, correct me if I'm wrong, but one of the bathrooms is connected to public sewer and water, served from the industrial park.
Okay, and what about the other one?
They are not.
Okay, but they're within 300 feet. The park is within 300 feet.
Correct.
So when I asked you earlier how many buildings would that affect, you said none, but it sounds like there's at least one right there.
If they had a failed or failing system, we could then look to connect them.
But the way I understand the text amendment to read is they're required to. Was there something I missed if it said only if the systems are failing, they're required to hook up if they're within 300 feet?
I don't disagree with your interpretation. I don't know that it would be make the most financial sense to require them to connect if they were not failing.
You and I both agree on that, but the document presented does not.
Yes, sir.
The document states that they have to spend taxpayer dollars to abandon a fully functional system,
Mhm.
which I can't get behind.
Understood.
And with the other irrigation component not being comprised into it, which we thought was going to be done, couldn't get behind it either.
Understood.
Gentlemen, any other questions?
Okay, that moves us on to public comment. We do not have any speakers signed up to speak, so we can move on to action.
Okay. Therefore, it's time for action. Would anybody care to make a motion?
I do, I'm just trying to figure out what and how.
Okay, you've got time, sir.
Council,
Yes, sir.
I'm not gonna ask what would be best. I'm gonna try to word my question carefully.
Yes, sir.
2 items that I feel need to be addressed
Yes,
prior
sir.
to approval on this. Would I find that we deny the text amendment or not approve the text amendment based on these 2 items that we feel would need to be addressed or changed?
So can I take the last one first?
Please.
Okay. So generally, there is as I call it, the elegant way, is to say we approve it, we recommend adoption conditioned on these changes being made, X, Y, Z. The problem is then that goes up, you've already made a consistency finding, and the BOCC then could either adopt your recommendation or not adopt your recommendation. The most powerful tool you would actually have is to take no action and tell staff, I want this change and I want this verbiage, and you can work with our council to make sure that that verbiage is correct. We'll redress it and come back next month and we'll take another vote.
So would that be a motion for no action?
Yes, I believe it's, if you look at the other motion, I could just help you, or there's,
It's on there.
it's at the very end of the negative
It's on
motion,
there.
the other motions.
Just don't close the record. Just don't close the record.
So at the beginning of the document, it's those motions that you mostly use, and then the more unused or rarer motions are at the end, called other motions. For instance, I move that we defer the issue of this plan and that we direct staff, water and sewer, to modify the proposed plan to include or delete blank. So it would be the second under other motions.
Which page?
That would be page 7, sir.
Council, please correct me if my motion is invalid.
Yes, sir.
I move that we defer the issue of text amendment 2501, leaving bear with me. Leaving the record open and asking staff to make or look at the changes to address the 2 concerns brought up, one of which is the mandatory tie-in of 300 feet when there's functional infrastructure in place. And the second item was
Irrigation system being exempted.
the irrigation system being exempted.
Thank you, sir. Do we have a second?
Second.
And I have a second from Commissioner Kernan. All those in favor? Aye. Motion passes. Thank you so much.
And
Thank you.
Thank you for your
And James,
presentation.
I can help you with that language.
All right, that brings us to item 3C, the draft Chapter 1 Town Centers and draft Chapter 2 Prince Frederick Town Center Master Plan.
Good evening, I'm Tay Harris. I am the long-range planner for the Department of Planning and Zoning. If you don't mind, I'm gonna go ahead and just give the background information without reading the memo.
Please.
That's fine. Thank you.
Okay. Tonight I'm here to discuss Chapter 1 Town Centers and Chapter 2 Prince Frederick Town Center Master Plan Update of the Master Plan of Town Centers, May 2025 draft. In February, or on February 19th, 2025, the Planning Commission endorsed the new process and format for the Master Town Centers to streamline the Town Center Master Plan update process. On March 19th and April 16th of 2025, staff presented the draft chapters 1 and 2 to the Planning Commission for review. And on April 16th, 2025, the Planning Commission also directed staff to hold a public hearing tonight, May 21st, 2025, on chapters 1 and 2 of the Master Plan of Town Centers. Per per the land use article of the Maryland Annotated Code, the Planning Commission is required to hold a public hearing and to determine that town center master plans are consistent with the Calvert County Comprehensive Plan. So, per the direction of the Planning Commission on April 16th, staff revised the draft chapters and made them available to the public via the Calvert County Town Center Master Plan update website. The legal advertisement was posted in Southern Maryland News on May 2nd and May 9th, 2025, and the public hearing was announced to the public via press release and social media on May 8th, 2025. So the next series of slides I'm going to go through, I'm going to briefly give you a high-level highlight of the chapters. Chapter 1, which is applicable to all town centers, explains and discusses the purpose of a town center master plan and how it relates to comprehensive plans, goals, objectives, and the plan's 10 visions, as per the list on the right-hand side of the slide. The chapter also discusses regulations, facilities, services, and programs, functional plans and studies, as they relate to the list of the subject matters on the right-hand side of the slide. And these particular subjects are required elements in a town center master plan. So it's all the background information that applies to all the town centers and all the different sections and elements required in the plan. So chapter 2, I'm going to go over the land use section and the environmental and natural resources sections highlights here. Before I proceed, I would just like to say that the last bullet on the slide should read Parkers, Hunting, and North Battle Creek subwatersheds. So the land use section highlights include that the Prince Frederick Town Center is the county seat and centrally located in the county. It is in the queue to experience significant residential growth. Town Center Master Plan includes 5 recommended land uses to guide growth and 5 focus areas to create memorable spaces. The anticipated growth, the majority of it is anticipated to come in the form of redevelopment and infill development, and the Town Center Master Plan also recommends the Town Center boundary expansion to be consistent with that of which is in the Calvert County Comprehensive Plan. The environment and natural resources section talks about planning on a watershed management of regional scale, and this is to take into account that the existing town center boundary and the proposed expansion boundary all lie within the Parkers, Hunting, and North Battle Creek sub-watersheds. It focuses on 2 indicators, impervious surfaces and tree canopy coverage, as indicators for a healthy ecosystem. Now this is high level. There's many more factors that indicate healthy ecosystems and watersheds. This section also includes a discussion on sensitive areas, which include streams, wetlands, highly erodible soils, and hydric soils, as well as habitat for rare, threatened, and endangered species in the town center, and targeted ecological areas. These are all protected through development, through RIO. Okay, so the heritage section, the housing section, and the economic vitality section highlights are on this slide. Heritage highlights include that there are 93 historic sites and 13 archaeological sites. Heritage recommends and advocates for connecting the town center to natural cultural resources outside of the town center through trails and shared use paths, and also accenting and highlighting the historical assets within the town center, particularly the Baltimore and Drum Point Historic Railroad bed. In the housing section, the few highlights are that there are more than 1,700 housing units in the town center, and that there is a mix of housing units predominantly of single family and some townhouses, but with the anticipated growth, there's going to be an increase in townhouses and apartment units, representing what we call housing types for all. And the town center, compared to all the other town centers, is second in affordability. The economic vitality section talks about industries, targeted industries, which are also the targeted industries for the county, but they include healthcare, high-tech, commercial, and retail. And there is a focus on small business attraction and expansion. The transportation element or section in the water resources section highlights include focusing on local transportation network improvements, the fact that there are several intersections nearing capacity, and the importance of widening MD24 and completing loop road improvements to address traffic congestion and mobility and safety. The plan also includes current public transportation services and recommended services for certain segments of the population, particularly those that are 65 or older, handicapped and vulnerable, and also those without cars. It also discusses advocating, targeting areas for shared use paths, and then eventually for a network within the entire town center. In the water resources section, it discusses that the town center is served by public water and sewer, that there is capacity within these systems for growth, and in addition to the growth that is discussed in the land use section. And then this section also discusses stormwater management and its impacts to water quality and the county's efforts to address stormwater and one through the Chesapeake Bay Agreement and the MS4 permit, but also to eventually update the stormwater management ordinance to address increased interval and frequency of rain events. And then lastly, we have the government and community facilities section. Being the county seat, there are several government facilities and services, which included the Prince Frederick Library, the Calvert Pines Senior Center, plus 30 plus support centers, county and state police barracks, fire and emergency operations, the hospital, Calvert Health, and then to touch on the schools, the current school capacity serving the town center and the schools in the town center are under capacity at this point in time. Are there any questions or comments?
Gentlemen, questions?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, if I could.
Certainly, sir.
Yeah, I have a process issue that I need to raise for broader discussion. As you recall, during the last Planning Commission meeting on April 16th, I voiced concern that the draft master plan language at that time did not adequately address the seriousness of traffic congestion issues. In particular, the draft did not mention that there are currently 5 failing intersections in Prince Frederick under the adequate public facilities ordinance criteria, not approaching failure, actually failing. Yet it also did not mention the implications of these failing intersections, which is under the APFO, there will be major new restrictions on new commercial and residential development in affected areas within Prince Frederick. As part of the APFO goal of keeping future traffic levels within the capacity of our road network and keeping traffic congestion from getting any worse, the APFO will require expensive traffic flow remediation by the state and county or developer, or a 6-year delay in any planned development unless overridden by State Highway Administration. During the April 16th discussion, Planning Commission members agreed that these were important points that should not be left out of the Prince Frederick Master Plan. We passed a motion unanimously on a 7-0 vote directing the Planning and Zoning Department to add text reflecting these points to the draft master plan as a condition of bringing the draft master plan forward to a public hearing. Unfortunately, Planning and Zoning Department did not include this language in the draft, but went ahead and scheduled today's public hearing anyway. The draft available for public review and discussion tonight does not include the added language that we had required. In my view, this is a problem for 2 reasons. Number one, traffic congestion continues to be one of the greatest issues of public concern. It is important for the public to review the required new language that we have advocated and comment about whether they consider that it adequately addresses their concerns. That can't happen tonight. Number two, the April 16 Planning Commission direction the Planning and Zoning Department to add text to the draft master plan was not just advisory, not just a recommendation. It was a requirement before moving to a public hearing, and yet here we are. One other point, Planning and Zoning did add a new sentence on traffic to the draft on page 73 of the red line text. It reads as follows: considering current and planned developments, including Armory Square, Magnolia Ridge West, and the County Administration Building, Armory Towns, and the Armory Pavilion, several movements are projected to operate at or near capacity during peak hours. At the Maryland 24 Church Street 231 intersection, northbound approach to Main Street Church Street, eastbound leftbound at Maryland 24 and 402, and the eastbound right turn at Maryland 24 Church Street, Maryland 231. This is factually incorrect. According to the same traffic impact analysis cited in the footnote in the text, these intersections are not at or near capacity. They are in fact beyond capacity and failing. The next sentence asserts that all other roads experience low to moderate delays. This is also factually incorrect. The key Route 24 intersection at Stokely Road at the north end of town, the one the public has been complaining most loudly about, is also failing, according to the most recently publicly available SHA data. So where do we go from here? My own suggestion to my fellow planning commissioners is that we vote tonight to remand the draft master plan back to Planning and Zoning and reiterate our requirement to add the needed text indicating that these intersections are failing under the APFO, and that this will place restrictions on major new commercial and residential development in affected areas of Prince Frederick unless remediation occurs. I recommend that we require, in this case, that new text be added in time for Planning Commission review and public review and comment before the next Planning Commission meeting on June 18th. Keeping the public record open to enable public review and comment on this new text should be part of this. At that point, pending review of the text and any other issues that might arise, the Planning Commission can then decide whether or not to advance the draft master plan to the next stage in the approval process. I do have a formal motion to offer on this, but I'd be very interested in the discussion about whether this is the right approach to take.
Thank you, Commissioner. Gentlemen, other comments?
Ditto.
Very well put, sir. Very well put.
That's the easy one. Yeah.
Are there any other comments on the entire process, or would we like to move to public comment?
Public comment.
Public comment? Public comment? Do we have anybody?
So we have one speaker signed up. We have one speaker signed up tonight. We have Bob Estes, representing Friends of Hunting Creek. He will have 5 minutes to speak.
Okay. So there's a lot of good stuff environmentally in the current draft. I haven't had as much time as I'd like to look at every dot and such. But one thing I noticed is that Hunting Creek is at least, or the watershed has at least 8% impervious surface, where 10% is considered a do not pass line. You're going to have a generally unhealthy result. There are things that don't even like say 5%, but we'll go with the 10. And I almost think that we should perhaps consider this similar to agri-public facilities. We should track this, and when we have a new development, are they going to push us over the line? It's possible. We don't want to do that, do we? I don't think so. And other points, there's good recognition, I think, of the the interlinked slope and fragile soils, not just one or the other, but they're together. So 25% doesn't work if you've got fragile soil. Sometimes even 10% doesn't work. So, and also it looks at the value of pervious surfaces that absorb. And just to give you an idea, if Hunting Creek's watershed provides about $8 million a year in services every year, not just once in a while, but every year. And you can read all the different services in the text. And I'd also, talking about congestion relief, I think there ought to be some kind of information as to what the loop roads would actually do in terms of providing relief to congestion. I'm not convinced that it's you're getting your bang for the buck. So perhaps even a rough estimate of what it would cost, based on the previous estimate plus inflation. That's something that should probably be included. I think it'll take your breath away. So, that you were with me on that steep ravine that's just beyond the pool is going to be fixed.
Oh, well, nice.
Thanks to money stolen from Parks and Rec. So
They're not smiling back there.
they know what I'm talking
It's not a
about.
real smile.
It's not a real smile, though. Yeah.
Public service announcement to anyone listening. Make sure you don't let your house get full of too much water, full of too much things that will grow. I'm having a little trouble with my head today. That will grow mold. I'm in that right now. It's going to cost me $100,000. Buy dehumidifiers. Anyone that's listening, they don't teach you that in high school. I really wish they would have a class in things you really need to know, not just things they think you need to know. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Esty. That
Can we hear Mr. Berry's?
Ready to offer a motion if there's no further discussion. Mr. Chair, I move that we reiterate our April 16th requirement that the Planning and Zoning Department add new text under the traffic congestion concerns sections, including that Route 4 at 402, Route 4 at Commerce Lane, Route 4 at Church Street, Main Street at Church Street, and Route 4 at Stokely Road are currently failing under APFO criteria. That it include language that this will restrict future commercial and residential growth in affected areas of Prince Frederick by requiring either traffic flow remediation by the state, county, or developer, or a 6-year delay in site plan approval unless overridden by SHA. Language should also be added addressing which of the strategies on improving traffic in Prince Frederick contained in Appendix A are likely to improve each of the failing intersections to a condition of adequacy under the APFO. Finally, that we keep the public record open for the next 30 days. Happy to read that
Acceptable.
again.
That acceptable?
That is.
Second.
But,
I have one question.
yes, sir.
The closing of the public record at a specific time, this is going to change, is going to require a new comment period, isn't it?
May I?
Please.
Yes. Now, there's one thing you'd said previously about it coming up at the next meeting. We're not gonna have enough time. I would recommend pushing it back to August.
Okay.
Once we publish it, we
Right.
probably wanna keep, and I'm not trying to tell you how to do your job, just a friendly recommendation, that you keep the record open until such time as the publication time period has, at the very least, expired.
Would there even need to be anything beyond keep the public record open? Or could it just be a period at that point?
You could close it at the meeting where it comes back up. So there's
Understood.
no, you wouldn't even have to necessarily address how long we're gonna keep it open, et cetera. As we've seen tonight for the 2 previous plans, we kept the record open until you decided to deliberate.
Sure.
So you could certainly do that again this time.
I personally very grateful for that added time, especially because just tonight we got some additional public comments that came in after the deadline. But they're very pertinent, I think, and well thought out, that I'd like additional time to review and assess. So, let me change the wording, and we'll go to.
You could just make a friendly amendment to keep the
Okay.
record open until the, or you don't, you can just delete out the
Sure.
reference to the record, actually.
Sure. Okay. Read it again, or?
Actually, if we could just get a friendly amendment on
I'd
that.
offer a friendly amendment that we just eliminate the date on when the,
Records.
when the record would be not open. I'm trying to remember how you
That's
worded it.
that's close enough.
Concur.
Right.
Mr. Burry, is that acceptable?
Yes.
Friendly amendment.
Okay, in that case, we have a motion as
Second.
amended, and we have a second. All those in favor?
Can we
Whoa.
can we have some discussion?
Certainly, sir.
So I think I have a question for the Director of Planning and Zoning.
Yes, sir.
So if we were to list the individual intersections that are failing in this document, when there is a change, either good or bad, on those intersections, would that require coming back and revisiting the master plan again?
I think it very well
Yeah,
could,
should.
yes. And I think that's the question that the board needs to make themselves aware of, is by getting that specific,
Right.
it will require,
Every
as,
time.
as the situation
Every time,
evolves,
yeah.
rounds of text amendments. And I think that's why staff addressed it the way we tried to address it, because this is a planning document and not a regulatory document, so
Exactly,
it's
exactly.
balancing that. Because I think we completely agree with the issue. I think we
Sure.
all know what the issue is.
Yeah.
It's just how to articulate that in a way necessary for a planning document.
So, I'm sorry. Okay, finish that.
Yeah, let me do a follow-up. So, as I understood, when the traffic impact analysis came before us that listed these intersections as failing, I asked the question what the remediation process would be. Some of it sounded like it could be simply retiming of signal lights to bring them back into compliance.
I believe that's one of the options. We're getting really far into DPW territory outside
Yeah,
of,
I know, I was kind of hoping JR would be here.
I'm
this
just an
evening,
attorney, I'm not an engineer, so
But that's fine. We won't hold it against you.
appreciate it.
You know, I think it would be more appropriate for the Department of Public Works to keep a running list of failed intersections that someone could see publicly. And our document makes some reference to referring the idea of failed intersections to the Department of Public Works for that list.
My suggestion, and I'm just thinking off the cuff here, we're in the age of technology, is to hyperlink, have that hyperlinked in the document. So, I mean, most people are seeing this electronically nowadays. You can hyperlink that so that you go to an updated list that hopefully would be regularly updated, so that way we're not back in front of the Planning Commission
Every time.
however often we need to be back in front of them.
Yeah.
So that's gonna be my suggestion. I think the vote tonight is gonna send you back to the drawing board for a little bit. But my suggestion is to come up with a way for Public Works to list failing intersections, and there will be some added and some taken off continuously.
Yeah, it's evolving, fluid situation, so to speak.
All right, thank you. You've answered my question.
I have a question about how many of these intersections are actually remediable by something as simple as synchronizing the lights. That would seem not to be the case, at least at Stokely Road, and probably at some of the other intersections as well. My big concern is that as a planning document, that we need to prepare ourselves for the adequate public facilities, really placing serious restrictions on people, on development. And I think the public needs to be reassured that we are trying to put congestion controls in place, consistent with the law. So I think that that also needs to be highlighted in this document. I would be very interested in a public works assessment about which of these intersections could possibly be remediated by retiming the lights, because otherwise the remediations would involve major construction, major funding that is not likely to appear anytime soon from the state given current budget. And in that case, we are flat stuck, I think, with these restrictions on growth, and developers will be obliged to wait the 6 years unless we can come up with some sort of better funding solutions. So these are all issues that I would really like to see highlighted in the current draft.
We could offer to bring DPW in for a work session at the next meeting if need be.
I'm sorry, Tamara, could you repeat that?
We could bring DPW in for a work session with the planning commission if need be, if you all would like, for their next meeting.
Thank you so much. Commissioner McQueen?
Yes, I just want to remind everybody that there's 545 more properties to be built, houses, townhouses and apartments in
Which I
the
think
area that we're all discussing.
goes to Commissioner Freeland's point to a certain extent too, that this is an evolving situation that could get better, but looks like it may go the other direction too.
And Commissioner McQueen, those are the approved units, correct?
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
There's 935 in the pipeline, but 545 have already been approved.
Thank you.
In approved or?
Approved.
Okay.
In the pipeline to be built.
But not yet finished constructed?
Not constructed.
Okay.
Yeah, and another one, just, I'm a data guy, so on page 12 of the master plan, and I know where you got the data, so it's,
Is it, I'm sorry, which, is it the track changes or
it's, it's actually medium houses and households and pricing and all that.
Yes.
Which came from our good old federal government. There's no way in the world that Solomon's is $89,000 medium income. And there's no way in the world that the average housing is $455. It's got to be higher than that. I'm just not sure of where the map is, of how they come up with that number.
So if you, well, the next time you open the document, if you click on,
Yeah.
if you see the source data, I'm not sure if the rental properties down in Solomon's have a factor in.
We also got a huge retirement facility, which probably is not factored in at all.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
You've got senior apartments, you've got, well, that's actually in Lusby, so let me come down a little bit. So if you look at the housing structures down there and what's built, there's a lot. And I just can't believe that those numbers were accurate, because you're basically saying those numbers are lower a little bit than Prince Frederick.
Yes.
The numbers don't work.
Okay, so
Something's wrong.
I'll look into it further and see, and sometimes the census data just is plain out doesn't make sense.
Right.
Because of the 5-year averages. So, but I will look into it.
One additional thought, Commissioner Freeland raises a good point about the necessity for a text amendment if any of the intersection levels of service were to rise above failing. I think that one way to solve that is in the text that the Planning Commission, Planning and Zoning provides under my suggested course of action. you just say these are failing as of a specific date, the date of the publication of the master plan. And then anybody reading the master plan can then refer to themselves to that constantly updated Department of Public Works document. Would that satisfy the concern?
Commissioner Freeland?
Do we have a motion?
Well,
Oh,
we
yeah.
still, actually, we have a seconded motion.
We have a
ready as
second
well.
motion.
It's still in the barrel.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
And we still have discussion on
Yeah,
it.
we're still in discussion on that before we start doing
Right.
other.
okay.
Yeah, I would leave that to planning and zoning, but my concern was every time there was a change in an intersection, we would be back here, because they were listed, we would be back here with a text
Yeah,
amendment.
yeah.
Yeah, if in your text you say failing as of a specific date for current status, please consult DPW.
That potentially could, if you put the caveat in there, it may be able to address it without the need to come back. I got a little lost earlier on the motion and whether we may be going a different direction. My suggestion would be, and I think Tamara brought it up earlier, that we have a work session with DPW at the next planning commission meeting so that we all, because as I pointed out, I'm not an engineer on the traffic side, but we have them have that conversation in a public setting and making sure the public aware. I think we all agree on what the issue is. It's just how do we word it in a way that addresses it the way that I think we want it to be addressed without creating a whole other set of issues. And then that would push the record a little farther, but
Okay.
I'd rather get it right
Okay.
than go back and forth on.
Based on your comments, I don't see any reason to change the wording of my motion, but I think based on the discussion that we've just had, that hopefully it's taking care of Commissioner Freeland's concern and yours.
In reference to what we're talking about here as far as exactly that, these intersections are failing as of today's date. The entire master plan is filled with data from resources specifying specific numbers as of a particular date. US Census 2020, whatever. Okay, all these other sources are referenced. Okay, so, I believe he's correct in the fact that the motion is still valid. It's still, because I believe, what is the exact verbiage now in reference to those intersections? They are near or at capacity?
Nearing capacity.
Nearing capacity. Not trying to be a smart aleck, but does that mean it's above capacity and it's working itself better to get to capacity? Because right now they're over capacity. I'm playing devil's advocate. So they're over, so instead of making it look like it's better than what it is, have it out there for what it is, and then allow, as you mentioned, the hyperlink to take you to the current data at that point.
Because the challenge you have with any of these master plans is you're already working with data that, as in the Census Bureau, that's already several months, if not a couple of years old.
Right.
And the moment you adopt it, it's out of date.
Right.
In reality.
But yet we're still utilizing
But yet
the
you
data.
have, how do you craft that in a way that doesn't put out misinformation and doesn't be as hard as, here is exactly what it is, but here is what it is as of this date. Here's where you could go get an updated list of what's going on.
I've been looking at failed intersections in county government now for 5+ years. And unless you dig for the information, you can't find it.
Yep.
It's not listed out there. The county's not proud of it, the state's not proud of it. We're here saying, whether or not we're proud of it or not, we gotta publish it.
Yep.
We gotta put it out there.
And I don't want to commit DPW to something that's beyond planning and
Right.
zoning's authority, so that's why I'm saying the work session next month would be a good chance to make sure that everybody's aware of what the issue is, and let's be upfront on what it is and how to address it.
Right, and I think the motion as it stands would be valid to just carry us into there's enough direction there and carry us into the next meeting or meetings.
May I be recognized?
Yes, sir.
Pursuant to the land use article, every 6 years, these things have to be reviewed for updates anyway, these things being plans. So, I mean, we're constantly going through the process of renewal on these. So I'm just saying that to keep in mind that this document isn't gonna be here till year 2050.
Forever, yeah.
In 6 years, we by law have to review it anyway.
Council, quick question.
Yes, sir.
It is my understanding that the existing motion would give direction to planning and zoning and at least hold the record open for at least another month for additional meetings to take place. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, I thought the friendly amendment was no reference to
Right.
the record, timing of the record. So that would
The
leave it
record
open
would
till,
still- The record would still remain open,
would still remain open.
and that it would continue to be open until a future date that is determined to be closed.
Correct. In fact, let's just, play this out. Let's say DPW came in the next meeting and brought up in a work session some new traffic information that you wanted included in the plan. Well, the record's still open, so that could be taken care of.
All right, thank you. Mr. Chairman, call the question. Vote to call the question.
Vote to call the question. All right, the question's called.
All in favor?
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Nobody opposed?
There was no one opposed to that, correct?
No.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. Thank you so much, Mara, we appreciate it.
All right, and
Sorry,
that brings us to adjournment of the public hearing.
Thank you. So that concludes the public hearing. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
We will take a brief recess and
Did we have a
reconvene.
second?
Second.
Second.
I'm sorry, one question. So we were talking about Chapter 2, Prince Frederick Master Plan, but also up is Chapter 1. Do we address that separately as ready to go to the next stage of approval or not?
We treated it as part 1 and 2 of the same plan
The
for
same
tonight's
document.
purposes.
Okay, so-
Correct.
Okay, got it.
The Planning and zoning brought it forward as
Okay,
an item.
got it.
Okay. The motion to adjourn, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We'll reconvene in 5 minutes. Thank you so much.